Kevin, what areas do you believe you and your staff have improved since the beginning of the year, focusing on your coaching staff?
The systems, just understanding how I like to operate, making sure, the messaging is the way I want it to be done with the players, but also internally, like with our meetings and so forth. So, that's been I think just a learning curve for everybody. Even though I've had some prior relationships, I've only really worked with like a handful of these guys. So a lot of my heavy hitters have never worked for me as the head coach before, and so has taken some time.
And kind of what goes into working with the staff, and putting together these game plans for all these different looks in the Big 12, and maybe just some of the thoughts of what goes into the scout this week against Kansas.
Yeah, I mean, I try to streamline things. Okay, what's plan A? What's plan B? If none of that works, what's plan C? And so that's kind of how we go through things, relative to our coverages, pick and roll coverages, post coverages, so forth. Obviously with Kansas, heavy paint presence, heavy post presence with Dickinson, and that's unique compared to some of the things we've been facing. Is particularly in the last two games where it was a lot more pick and roll centric. I mean, they're still going to do a lot of pick and rolls as well, and we'll have to have an answer there. But he presents a bit of a different challenge than what we've seen of late.
All right, we'll go with Matt, Jay, and then Dana.
With Kansas being such a prestigious program, how does the team and specifically the players maybe keep the mentality of maybe not hyping this game up too much?
Number one, respect the consistency on the treadmill. Number two, we need to win ball games. Like our group hasn't really been a group where it's gotten too high or too low. We've been really business-like with our, approach each practice and each game, regardless of who the opponent is. And so that's just kind of how we're going to approach this one as well. I think you can also add in, BYU goes there last year, beats them at their place. They come out here, they've lost a couple in a row. You can make that narrative, they're going to be hungry and this and that. Well, so are we. We've played a couple good games in a row, but we're hungry as well. And so I think all that stuff kind of goes out the window once the ball gets thrown up, and you just got to execute the game plan.
Kevin, as the season's gone on, do you feel like you've kind of like added to your toolbox, added to your repertoire as far as all the various things and lineups that you can do, and how has that helped you guys?
I mean, lineup-wise, yes, and scheme-wise, yes as well. Like, that's I think one of the trickier things for me in the NBA. We had so many games in such a short period of time that you're having to roll out different game plans here. With less games and less opposition, right? Your game plans are just limited to that amount of games, if all that kind of makes sense. So we've found some stuff that was kind of newish for us over the last couple of weeks. Now that being said, to talk out of both sides of my mouth, once you get to like this point in any season, I do think that there are reference points that you can go back to, like, hey, like this morning, hey, we did this against Central Florida. Let's try that against these guys and so forth. So I do think there's reference points. But, yes, the tool belt has grown. Now, in terms of the lineups, that's something that, has been a revelation of sorts in one sense. And on another, it's been just another kind of challenge to work through. But it has helped us. Just having different skill sets out there on both ends of the floor, and credit to our team and our players for just kind of rolling with the punches as we've kind of expanded the rotation.
And as a follow-up to that, do you feel like you're fairly well equipped to deal with Hunter Dickinson? And have you seen anybody like him this season so far?
I don't think we've seen anyone like him just because of how big he is. I mean, they do a tremendous job of finding angles where he can score the ball. It's not so much he's like this low back to the basket savant. They just do a really, really good job of getting him in the ball where all he has to do is catch, gather, and finish. And so, his sheer size is obviously the biggest challenge with that. We'll have to do it as a team, just like we had to do that with Javon Small, just like we had to do that with, Kansas State's combination of weapons. And so, in a perfect world, you're rolling in a 7-2 guy that can go blow for blow with him. But obviously we don't have that, so we'll have to do it in some other ways.
Coach, when you talk about Dallin Hall, and this is the guy who started as a freshman, and here he is, he's coming off the bench. How well has he handled this new role? I mean, he's thriving in it now, and 16 points the other night. Can you just talk about his mentality and how he's adjusted to this new group, and why he's playing so well right now?
Yeah, a lot of credit goes to Dallin, just his mindset. And his adaptability, not just coming off the bench, but just a different role with the ball in his hands, a little bit less and so forth, and a different style of play. A lot of it last year was throw it to the big and cut. Now I'm asking him to play more pick and roll. I'm asking him to drive it more and so forth. And so I think he's found a level of confidence in terms of using other teams' physicality against them as a driver, as opposed to last year where a lot of that was done via cutting. And so that's something. Those are the things we've been working on with him, and he's been able to kind of put those in play and have some success with it.
And real quick, I just wanted to ask you about Yegor and his the balance that he's trying to find between attacking the basket, being an aggressive scorer, and distributing. You kind of like the balance that he's found?
Yeah, I mean, I love when he's in attack mode, trying to get downhill. I mean, I've said this before, he's one of the best rim finishers in all of college basketball. Which you're a perimeter player, that's pretty impressive. And so, he puts a lot of strain on the defense when he's getting downhill and getting to the rim. And then they have to help and so forth, and that opens things up on a perimeter. And I think, particularly in the last two games, I think teams are worried about our three-point shooting, rightfully so. We've got a lot of guys that can shoot. We shoot it at a high percentage as well as a high volume, and so that opens up driving lanes, and I think him and Dallin have been beneficiaries of that. So I think, Yegor striking that balance is, important for us.
All right, guys, any more questions for Coach? All right, Matt.
When you took the job, Kevin, you noted how coming to the Big 12 was a big selling point to coming to BYU. Now that you've played in some high-profile matchups and you have more to come, is this kind of meeting the expectations you had when you took the job to compete at this level?
I would say yes, probably surpassed it. I knew it was a hard league, but just every game is just an absolute dogfight. And it probably underestimated that component of it, knowing that it was a really, really good league, but just it feels like every game is just an all-out war. And so it's it's fun to prepare for that. It's mentally exhausting as well. And you try to, I think, especially this stage of the season, I try to balance it anyway with making sure I'm not wearing myself out, trying to keep myself fresh so I can bring it every day for our guys.
All right, we'll go with Bruce, and then we'll finish with Dana.
Hi, Kevin. Hey, Kevin. I was just wondering, later this week, with you coming down to Arizona, if you had, when you were with the Suns, if you had any connections, either scouting games in Tucson or practices or coming down or getting to know any of the staff or anything like that, or were you doing other stuff those years?
Yeah, I was doing other stuff. I mean, I was friends with Ricardo Foix, who was an assistant there with Tommy, and that kind of led me to meet Tommy a little bit. But no, I've never been to a game down there. Had some work with Joseph Blair, a Tucson legend, when I was in Philly. We worked together. So I've worked with a couple of Arizona folks, but never been down there.
Okay.
Hey, Coach, I just wanted to ask, I don't know if you talked about it after the game the other night, but just your reaction to the Tom Homo retirement, and, you've only known him a short time, but what he's meant to you in your short time at BYU.
Yeah, Tom's a stud, man. He's just got a great way about him. I think for me, it was really unique being, taking this job, coming from the pro ranks and not having really much experience at the college level. And, there's just not, unless you go through like pro sports, I think it's hard to have an idea of like what it's like. And so the fact that he had a pro background, albeit some years ago, him and I were able to connect on that level, which he was able to, kind of meet me where I was and kind of help me learn some things, the differences and so forth. That was big. And then he's just an awesome guy. I mean, he just got a really good way about him. I like his leadership style. He's not micromanaging everything. I think he kind of lets you do your job, and he's there to support, and I really appreciate that. And, his family as well, his wife, his kids, everybody just being super supportive to me and my family, really meant a lot to us. So I'll definitely miss working with Tom, but I know he'll be he's a Coug for life, and he'll be still being supportive.
All right. Thanks, Coach. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
See you tomorrow.
Yep.